All right. Are we rolling? Let's see. Check live. Yes, there it is. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Saturday, well, I guess afternoon MBTI stream. Let's see. No particular subject today, although I'll probably mention some of my future projects as soon as I can get this link figured out. Let's see. Oops. There we go. All right. Let's see. So there's been some changes as of late. My grandfather passed away not terribly long ago. Just picked up his ashes yesterday. And so things have been going through a bit of a transition, which is why I haven't been posting a whole lot recently, but we're about to get back to it. Let's see. Nope, not stats. Chat. There it is. Mm-hmm. And as you can see here, this is my this is my new green screen. And in case you're wondering, it is what is that? 9 pieces of large construction paper with thumbtacks into a sliding closet door that I found. So I finally got a piece of technology here that'll let me film things. So I'm hoping to finish a transition into more skit related things or video stories. But for today, we'll talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, assuming anyone shows up. It's been a while. Let's see. No notifications. Let's see. Don't share with followers. What? Hmm. And I haven't been playing a lot of games recently either. Which is also new for me. But let's see if I can. What is your next skit about? Hi, Daibi. Well, I was kind of thinking that maybe some more controversial skits might be funny. Right now, though, I've been working on episode 2 of Into the Nexus. And that has been a very exciting idea to tell that story. But what I'll be doing is looking through my Discord to see suggestions about potential skits, and I'll probably go off of that. It's when it comes to the MBTI community, excuse me, when it comes to the MBTI community, it's difficult to give everyone what they're looking for. Some people want just straight education, some people want comedy, some people want skits. Um, some people want a combination of all of it. Let's see. Change this to all chat. Hi, Club ENTP. Yeah, hit that like button, you haters. But I figured it's been a while, so get on stream for a couple hours and say hi to everyone. Is the MBTI community competitive? Maybe competitive in terms of attention, I suppose. Thank you. But yes, today I will answer some MBTI related questions, or if you have questions about what kind of skits I might be doing, or how the production is going on the second episode of Into the Nexus. And I found that the difficult part for my machine is creating longer episodes because my computer's kind of old and doesn't handle it all that well. Perpetual messy bed syndrome. Yes. Well, I mean, I'm not sleeping in it, right? So it can hold stuff for a time. And then when I do need to sleep, you just kind of push it away towards the wall. And yes, understandably, my room is not as organized as it probably could be. And yes, with grandfather's passing, there has been some changes certainly, but there's also the well, yeah, I push it towards the wall, but so there's talks of what to do with his things or the house or any of that stuff. So been spending a lot of focus on that and moving, figuring out where I'm moving next. And so yes, production on some things have slowed down a little bit. I don't have a host today, although I did ask Harley. She didn't get back to me. Hi, Fish Cake Island. That's a fun name. Let's see. Am I going to watch UFC tonight? It's I've never actually watched a whole match of UFC, although I enjoyed playing the video games, or some of them anyway. I enjoyed a number. I think it was UFC 3 Undisputed or something like that. But yes, I do not. I don't keep up with many sports, although I had been paying attention to the football teams as of late. This season in particular, 49ers. I've been watching that. Hi, Ava B. Do you know Eddie Lamar and which MBTI she could have been? I do not know who that is, unfortunately. Is that a pop star or something? Let me. I do appreciate UFC more than, let's say, boxing. What I found issue with for a lot of that more gladiatorial combat is that they're very restricted, and of course in the case of boxing it's just fists, it's with gloves, padded big gloves. But UFC I appreciate a little bit more because you get to incorporate a great deal of variance in how you take down an opponent. Hello. I did know, I do know a ENTP who actually was doing some boxing or kickboxing related sports. He actually showed me a video or two about him doing that. What MBTI type is Miley Cyrus? I don't know, but what I have noticed in interviews with a lot of pop stars is that understandably a large number of them are uh, ESFP. I have noticed that, or certainly at least the louder ones are ESFP. As for boxing is fixed, that's uh, that's quite plausible. Hi, Ven. Ven's new here. Is the wife beater your ENTP uniform? Um, I wear them a lot, most certainly. Back when I was living in New Mexico, I people mostly knew me by the flip flops, the pajama pants, and just the wife beater, and then going into the store. They may not. ESTPs don't like to wear shirts. Now, I know that ESFPs, who are gym rats, tend to not like to wear shirts. And Ven doesn't wear clothes at all. So let's take a look. Let's make sure I'm not missing any chats here. Hmm. Anyways, how did everyone like the pilot for the Into the Nexus thing? It was short, but it was because my computer can't handle a whole lot of video at one time. So for subsequent videos, what I'm planning on doing is making them around 8 to 10 minutes long, and what I'm going to do is chop them up and then stitch them together afterwards, and hope that that kind of works out. How can an ESTP be nearly described, stereotypes aside? Well, they don't prefer abstract topics. It's not that they can't talk about them, but it's certainly not something they're interested in. So when you begin to talk about um, theoretical things, what ifs, what things could be like, they tend to get bored rather quickly, and that's of course that's assuming that they don't have another ulterior motive in mind. But they tend to not be that interested. Then, of course, the next thing is that they're still very logical, still very, and of course, very, very practical in the things that they do. So they wish to find accuracy in the decisions that they're making or the decisions that other people are making. And when there's some steps missing in that logic, they tend to point it out. And then, of course, they're also great at talking to people. People generally tend to want to be around them. They are considered pleasant and very nice, especially in public. What's your talent and or passion? I have found that my biggest talent was getting people to like me. That was the uh, if I had to if I had to give myself a positive talent or the greater of positive talents, it's getting people to enjoy my presence. My passion is being lazy, though. If I could somehow come across a large sum of money that so that I didn't have to work for the rest of my life, then that's what I'd be doing. Let's see. Have you ever been to a street named Urchin? I have not. And I have not been to a street named Urchin yet. I'm sure that there is one out there. Put the stream in Discord announcements. I did put it in Discord announcements. I was pretty sure. Yeah, I think yeah, it's there. Ven is actually named Ben, always in state of Zen. Favorite characters Kylo Ren. Kind of doubt it, but anything's possible. That's what I say. See, let's see what else we got here. Meow says, I think that's cookie dough. It's been a while. Yes, of course. Don't forget to like the video. Oh, hmm. I've actually not watched The Shining. I'll need to do that soon. I was scheduled to watch The Happening recently, and that kind of fell through. So yes, please feel free to ask me any questions today. Hmm. Second position, introverted thinking and introverted feeling. What's the difference? Well, they're two completely different functions. So that would be the difference. But introverted thinking wants logical consistency and accuracy in explanations well, of course, the logic that is dictated therein. Introverted feeling wants to find what is a more relatable way to say it. Introverted feeling wishes for its thoughts and actions. No, its thoughts and, well, no, I guess it is thoughts and actions, to align with their personal values. So in one case, you could say that for introverted thinking, it wants to use logic, its personal logic, mind you, whereas introverted feeling wants to use its personal values, feelings, ethics, morals, etc. Let's see. How bad would it be for an ENTP to be raised in a house where both parents had first or second position introverted sensing, asking for a friend? Well, that's going to be a little bit difficult for the parents, especially if the parents are particularly lax on discipline, then of course the ENTP is going to run amok and do whatever they want. However, on the other hand, if the introverted sensing parents are too strict, then the ENTP gets rebellious, then runs amok and does whatever it wants. So, um, it could be a little bit more difficult than normal. Uh, just checked out your video on the Nexus. Can't wait to see what the series leads to. Thank you, Dai. I'm hoping it's going to keep me more entertained. I would like to still occasionally do MBTI related things, mostly funny, maybe, of course, skit related things. It's just that I've been in it for over 10 years, and then of course, really doing MBTI stuff as content on the YouTube, and I'm just kind of ready to try out other things, move on to other projects. Let's see. Adel said, I'm an ESTP on the verge of ESFP. How can that be possible? I wouldn't say that it is possible to be on the verge. Now, it's not to say that an ESTP can't have moments where they're feeling vulnerable, but with extroverted feeling as a preference, you would want to keep that inside as to not disrupt the harmony of the group you're in. Way to MacGyver your green screen. Yes, thank you, Club ENTP. For anyone just joining, this green screen is construction paper, thumbtacks, and a sliding closet door I found that wasn't being used. So my room currently is particularly small, so I this is where it has to be for the moment. Let's see. None Your Business says, if your functions are mostly genetic, does that mean the order they are placed in is genetic as well? I believe that personality is largely genetic, and I think that I do believe that genetics will give some influence towards what positions those functions can be in. But of course, I've seen all kinds of cases where mutations happen and that the children can deviate very far from the parents. Let's see. Truly wise beyond your years, young ENTP. How old do you think I am, Club ENTP? Good evening from Prague, says David. Can you tell me where I might found something relatable about MBTI, especially ENFJ? So you're looking for a relatable information on ENFJs. Well, I do my best to make my MBTI information as practical as I can. So you could check out any of my videos that had ENFJs involved in it. But of course, understandably, the best way to understand an ENFJ is to actually go out there and try to find one and then have some interactions. I don't tell people to just trust stereotypes or to go to any place in particular um, outside of the MBTI website where they list the cognitive functions. Let's see. Don't worry, young ENTP, we out earn all types in our later years. Case in point, me. Oh, I didn't know you're 54. You look like you're in your early 20s. Well, thank you, because I'm not in my early 20s. So thank you. Die B was very close, though. Uh, well, that's great that that you're doing well financially. Ex-wives, you older ENTPs, I somehow like the one that I met in person back in Texas. He still had a wife, and I was like, that's so strange to me. But back then, things when it came to marriage, relationships, and then divorces, etc., was a little bit different back then. So I imagine it didn't look like such a bad idea as it does today. Thank you, Anarchy Raccoon. Your boss is an ENFJ? Well, talk to him and see if you can make yourself useful to them, and then they'll try to keep you around. So if there's an ENTJ and they have a child, would their kid most likely to be an ENTJ, or would they most likely be more common type like an ESFP or an ISFP? Um, I would think that I mean, of course, it's genetics is luck of the draw, but it's quite plausible that the ENTJ would pass along a great number of those. So in the case of, let's say, my mother, for example, being an INTJ female, her father, INTJ stereotypical, like it was really, really strong in that regard. So he essentially passed on virtually his entire personality to her, and then she passed that along to the second oldest, my brother. So it is likely that if an ENTJ were to have enough children, that one of them would be an ENTJ as well. Are you an only child or are you the youngest? I am the oldest of five children. So that would be four siblings, but five children in total, including myself. And in regards to my projects, what I'll be doing is doing one part of this next one and then probably turning it into some kind of short, YouTube short for people to look at so that everyone can see what it's about. So if you haven't seen the pilot for Into the Nexus, it is about the main character, Urchin, who did you lose weight? I have been losing weight. Thank you for noticing, Cookie Dough. My goal is to lose about 20-ish more pounds. So what types are your other siblings? So I have so my father had three children with one woman and then had two more with another. Um, so that was me, and then my the second oldest, an INTJ, and then the third, my sister, who I believe is an ISFP. Most likely, we don't talk a whole lot. I did talk to her kind of shortly, or recently, for a small amount of time, but I believe she was ISFP. And then the two more after that was an ENFP, just like my father, and then an INTP as the youngest. Do kids often inherit one parent's type, or do they often have half of their mom's functions? And so, from what I've seen, in a many cases, they will have a child that has virtually the exact same personality type. I have seen that in a great many cases, and it's much more common in introverted sensing parents. That introverted sensing gene seems to be very strong comparatively to some other ones. Sorry, my hair's a little bit something today. And yes, as for the losing weight part, since I'm going to be doing more video story and skit related things, I figured it would be prudent to drop a few pounds. Yes, the introverted sensing gene. It does seem to be very strong comparatively to others. Yes, genes. Corduroys. Like say an INTP and an ISFP had kids, could their kid potentially be an ESTP or ISTP? I think that I think that mutations can happen, and that that child could turn out to be just about anything. But my friend Michael did in fact have a child with whom I believe is an ISFP female, and so I will ask some questions about it and see if Michael can give me any information on the personnel. I think his kid's like 3 now or something. What parts of the brain are otherwise do you think are be related to different functions? Well, so the human brain is they categorize it like this more core kind of way as 3 different parts, and you've got what is colloquially known as the lizard brain. Then you've got the midbrain, which is I was just talking about it yesterday, and I keep forgetting the limbic system. I think is what it was, and then you have the neocortex, which makes up a vast majority of the brain. And so the lizard brain, the small part near the back here, that's has more to do with instinct, fight or flight, reflex, etc. Then the midbrain, the limbic system, has to do with your emotions, your feelings, etc. And then the neocortex is for logic, reasoning, imagination, all those super fun things that turned us into an actual civilization of something more than squabbling animals. And so I would think that a large portion of the functions are located in the neocortex. But then, of course, when it comes to things like feelings, values, ethics, morals, etc., that's going to be located more towards the midbrain. Or at least that's what I think. Let's see. How does extroverted intuition operate in real life? What do you they do? What's special? How it operates in real life? Well, you're talking about how it's used in real life. Well, it's usually used as seeing reality and then wishing it was something else. So these great imaginations, go instead of being sitting in a classroom all day, you're going to another galaxy. You're seeing different kinds of life forms, different aliens, or building a spacecraft in your mind and then going there. It's about not focusing on what's going on around you. Let's see. If you mushed all types together into a big piece of dough and baked it, which type do you think you would taste the most? Yes, colloquialism. I'm not sure which one you would taste the most, I suppose. From person to person, whichever function you have the least taste for is probably the one that would stick out the most, I would think. Would that be considered a mutation, though, because they got half of their functions from me and half from dad, as opposed to, say, an ENFP and INTJ set of parents making ENTP child? The TI and FE mutations. Oh, moms. Okay. I don't know if it would be some super strong kind of a mutation, but yes, so when I think of a mutation, I think two very regular people, let's say an ESTJ father, ISFP mother, and then all of a sudden their first child is an ENTJ. I was like, well, that's really strange because instead of following, traditions or of course just being nice and kind to people, they're doing near the opposite of that throughout life. And that would be certainly some kind of mutation because that ENTJ child is not going to act a whole lot like either parent. They're going to have very noticeable character differences, or at least ones that I would find noticeable. Or to have two introverted thinking parents, or first, second position introverted thinking, and then all of a sudden their first child comes out as an INFP. Like, whoa, that's really weird. Well, I think you can use the word mutation subjectively. Whatever in this particular instance, you could say, oh, that's a big mutation, or that this is a small one. Uh, but I typically, excuse me, I typically use the word mutation to describe some to what I consider to be a large difference in personality. Thoughts on talking with famous people? I have no thoughts on talking with famous people. Um, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? No, I don't know their type, I'm afraid. I don't think that these mutations occur very often. And that's just based on my 10 years of experience, finding these people doing, testing things, experimenting, etc. Uh, it doesn't seem to happen all that often. Most of the time, when there is a difference, though, from parent to child, it is usually a slight mix-up of the functions. So, for example, an ESTP father may have a ISTP son, as an example. But in many cases, one of those children end up just being the same type as one of the parents. It's very common. Thoughts on the Great Zane? I think the Great Zane is alive for sure. Thank you, Cookie Dough. That would be. I actually don't. I don't find the they would have the same functions, and it's certainly a lot different from the ESTP. There's a great difference in the location of the introverted intuition. It goes from a position in which it doesn't really care about looking to the future and thinking ahead and planning things out to someone that very much wants to plan things out. But certainly the functions were there. Absolutely. But the other parts of the functions, like the extroverted sensing and the extroverted feeling, they're in positions in which they could still be used very regularly. My mum is an INFP. I don't know about my dad, but he spent his whole life for religion and to work for his family, ISFJ, ISTJ. Well, ISTJs are the most common. And so it's if you wanted to go for statistics, you could at least give that might give you a clue as to which path to follow in terms of figuring out his type. If function use is based on strength of different parts of the brain, it would be interesting to see if the brain of someone with dissociative identity disorder matches this. I have been wanting to find someone with a split personality disorder to talk to, because my thinking is that, well, for these function preferences that you have, they grant you, as you use them, you gain experience, and as you gain more experience in using these functions, you have understandably pick up those tips and tricks from using them. So someone that is primarily, let's say, an ISTJ, but then for whatever reason they have split personality disorder, would those other personalities all of a sudden preference other functions? And if they did, at what level of experience are we talking about? And so I would love to get to sit down and talk to someone with split personality disorder. But generally speaking, my thinking is that they still wouldn't be having enough of a preference or enough experience in using these other functions. And so it would come off as maybe they would apply different functions as if you were listening to them from a child or something, just due to the lack of experience. So why do you think there's not more ENFJs or INFJs if there's a somewhat decent number, or ESTPs and ISTPs out there? Is it because they aren't having as many children as other types? In many cases, they're simply not having a lot of kids. So, uh, and it's quite plausible that the idea of introverted intuition could be something a bit more recessive in personality. And based on the one INFJ that I knew that had multiple children, the children did not turn out INFJ, and so it seemed that uh, that particular set of functions is, at least in terms of introverted intuition, it seems that it's seemingly rather recessive. I have five siblings. My brother, I think, is ESTP, and ENT, maybe ESTP, or maybe an ENTJ. Well, there's a big difference between those two. Um, well, anything's possible, of course. Then we could start talking about degradation of genetic material over time. Um, as we know that the older the mother is when they have children, the higher the likelihood for conditions like autism, Down syndrome, etc. And so it's we don't I certainly don't know to what degree the biological degradation of genetic material contributes to personalities. Oh, you meant ENTP, not ENTJ. Well, you can't tell the difference between extroverted intuition or extroverted sensing. Well, extroverted intuition cares about the what could be rather than what is. Extroverted sensing cares about how things are currently. Is autism more related to introverted thinking than anything else? I think that, well, it really depends on the kind of the what are they what do they call it, the levels of autism. And so, for example, when it comes to INTPs, they tend to have Asperger's, which is now just known as a form of autism, which is a very low grade autism. So I think that it had, in his particular case, it has more to do with that position of extroverted feeling versus where the introverted thinking is. You seem happy, Urchin. I've been in much of a much greater mood these past couple of weeks. Why is it always Down syndrome and not up syndrome? These things keep me up at night. I think that if we're talking about that low grade autism, Asperger's, the inability to properly socialize with other people, I think it has more to do with where's that extroverted feeling located. Why do things keep you up at night and not down? That is an excellent question. Usually, though, yes, some things do keep me up at night. On the other hand, there are things that keep me down in the morning and cause me to refuse to get out of bed. Why do you think the brain can't or doesn't preference two extroverted functions or introverted functions the most? Like, couldn't that. Now, early on in my MBTI understandings, that was one of the questions that I asked. Why is it that they have to be in this particular order? And I think that was more, of course, for categorization. But I try to imagine, well, what would it be like if you had straight up three extroverted functions down the row? You've got three out of the four are just extroverted, and I think that that does happen. I actually think that there are people that have too much. Their brain is preferencing too much introverted or extroverted type functions, and what happens is they end up in the loony bin. that's that's my theory. Is that when that does happen, they start to develop things like schizophrenia. So I think they end up in the loony bin or on pills. But generally speaking, the theory is that this is how you balance yourself out. You expend energy towards extroverted related functions, and then you spend some energy towards introverted related functions. Let's make sure that I'm not missing any here. Let's see. The brain has to have an introverted function and extroverted function due to playing Fortnite, obviously. Humanity has existed for the sole purpose of Fortnite. I've heard a lot about Fortnite. I never actually played it. I've just heard about it and seen some clips of it. What else do we got here? Yes, as I was saying about the Into the Nexus, the story is of the main character Urchin, who essentially gets teleported into a place called the Nexus, and from the Nexus, he is to travel different worlds to collect powers, weapons, possibly resources, talents, etc., so that he can inevitably fight a character called the End. And if you haven't seen it, feel free to go check out the pilot. It's about 4 minutes long or something. I don't know, four and a half. And hopefully, as the series progresses, I'll be able to afford cosmetics, like certain makeups or disguises. All right. It's been almost an hour. Remember to like and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Let's see. I don't know how long this stream today will be. I just kind of figured that it was time to do a little bit of streaming since I've been working on all this stuff, and then of course the house and family related things. So I know I've been a little bit absent, and so I figured I would say hi to everybody. Mm. But yes, if it looks like it's winding down, then we'll just call it at about an hour. Well, about 10 more minutes, roughly, about an hour in total. Club ENTP, you're one of the older ones. I was wondering what line of career or work you got into. If you don't mind sharing, that is. Law, that's something. That is a great deal of work. An ex-producer from Viacom. I remember Viacom. That was way back in the day. Why aren't ISTPs autistic like INTPs? Why are ISTJs sometimes a little autistic even though they go out and deal with society often? So in the case of I've actually talked about this before in the case of ISTPs and versus INTPs. So an ISTP doesn't spend as much time wondering about the possibilities of the decisions they're going to be making. What they're doing is they're engaging with the real world, which also oftentimes includes engaging with other people. And so they tend to get a little bit more practice in using extroverted feeling. In the case of an INTP, they're spending a lot of time in this imaginary world. And so they have less time to interact with other human beings. So by the time the INTP is 18 years old, they still seem very uh, unsocialized in some respects. Whereas the ISTP will have been engaging with people on a much more regular basis. It doesn't mean that they're a whole lot better at it naturally, but it does mean that they've gotten more experience. And then as for the ISTJs, seeming a little autistic, well, it I oftentimes have found that ISTJs that grow up in a household that doesn't have a strong preference, any kind of strong preference to extroverted feeler around, even as a grandparent or one of their parents, or maybe at their daycare, because obviously a lot of ISTJs end up going to daycare. But if they don't have that, uh, then they tend to not get a lot of experience in just dealing with people on a normal basis. And on top of that, of course, ISTJs don't have the super strong natural preference for extroverted feeling anyway. And so that programming is very important to determine how autistic they might seem as they slide into older ages. Also a producer and a songwriter and also an inventor. That's fantastic news. I'm mostly just a philosopher. And I'm just one hell of a listener. Have you noticed anything that's specific to ESTPs? Specific to ESTPs, they tend to go out and have a lot of people like them, and in many cases, they end up having many romantic partners as they grow up. Excuse me. Bless me. Well, Club ENTP, if I'm also in the looking out for any kind of freelance work, so if you happen to have anything that might be relevant to me, feel free to let me know. And I'm glad that you love my style. It's very lazy and get nothing done kind of a style, so thank you. Be blessed as well, Club ENTP. That's great. Well, yeah, like I said, if there's anything that you think that I might be fit for, especially something remote, feel free to drop me a message. Let's see. This is just a vaporizer. I quit smoking around 29, and I got onto this. Just nicotine. Hi, Envy. Help me build a set using green screen construction paper. Yeah, that's probably something I could help you with. I have some fresh experience in the matter. My big problem though is that I don't have a lot of space. There's between the camera and the green screen, there's maybe uh, almost 6 feet of space between. So and that's my big issue at the moment. I'm trying to clear out other parts of the house so that I might have more space. But ugh. Thank you. I'm glad you think so. You said that ENFPs and INFPs enjoy going outside, being one with nature. Some of them do. Why do these types enjoy doing that more than, say, an ESTP or an ESFP or ISTP? I would think that their extroverted intuition would make them not want to. So, when it comes to ENFPs and INFPs, they tend to get this greater level of abstraction from natural environments. They tend to many of them want to, especially in the case of INFPs, they get this feeling that they are communicating with nature, kind of a thing. And of course, I've known a couple of ENFPs that prefer the same thing. Now, when it comes to ESTPs, especially that I've noticed lately, and this is more of a generational thing. This is not how it was back in the day, but generationally speaking, ESTPs nowadays they of course want to min max reality, and so nowadays you can get work and enjoy yourself for without requiring to go outside. Now, that's not to say that ESTPs still don't go outside. My cousin, for example, he has a fully remote job. He spends almost all of his time in the house doing that work. But he will still occasionally go out and go bowling. He'll play ultimate frisbee with people, and then of course if his family comes a calling, he will do whatever traditional family exercise that they would, activity that they would do. But ESTPs, if they don't see a need to do it, they oftentimes won't be doing it. They need a reason, a good logical reason for doing what it is that they're doing. And so if they don't need to go outside to get money or to get attention or to have food brought to them, they're fine with it. Now, as for ENFPs and INFPs, as I said, they are looking for more to life. Um, they want to, and that's not to say they do it all the time either. It's not like you're going to find an INFP who wants to just go out and live in the woods. It's just that they tend to take those walks because whatever other options they have in life aren't as interesting to them, and so they will go out there and then try to imagine being one with nature, feeling the energy, etc. Yeah, Club ENTP, that sounds super fun. I wouldn't mind scheduling something to do that. Too much space between your ears. Yes, we'll brainstorm something and have it figured out. Excuse me. Thank you, B&E. I like your vibe too. Does B&E stand for breaking and entering? I'm just out of curiosity. What about finding a challenge for themselves? Would an ISTP be more inclined to going outside to do physic exercise for the challenge of it? That has been my experience with ISTPs is they like getting physical, but it's not that I don't know if they're necessary. I don't know if they're necessarily more inclined because they need to think about, let's say, for example, surviving in the wild. If you say to an ISTP, hey, I challenge you to survive 7 days out in the forest someplace, and if there was adequate reward for doing such a thing, then sure, they would be more inclined to do that challenge. The older ISTPs that I knew, one of which was actually a photographer, and which I thought was very strange. And now, mind you, he was in his 60s, but he wasn't just any photographer. He lived out in Alaska, and he would venture far into the Alaskan wilderness to take very specific photos for people. He got paid lots and lots of money to do it, and supposedly he survived a plane crash even at some point. Yeah, sounds great, Bromeister. Thank you. We'll do that. Just make sure to send me a message on Discord or something. But yes, when it comes to challenges, ISTPs oftentimes don't shy away from the challenge. Generally speaking, a physical challenge. However, that physical challenge isn't what necessarily something that we would traditionally know as physical, like let's say, lifting something very heavy, or as I mentioned earlier, surviving in the wilderness. It can also mean something like playing a first-person shooter and then challenging themselves to be a faster shot than the other people. So if it challenges their physical abilities, they are certainly more inclined to do it, and they are far more competitive and typically more aggressive than other competitors. Mm-hmm. Do we have any more questions? Or are we winding down? Do you think some types sound aggressive when they speak or angry? I've been told I do, but not usually mad or anything. Um, I think age and gender typically has a lot to do with how aggressive you might sound. So, for example, I was a great deal more outspoken once after I had turned 15 and I wasn't living with my mother anymore. I had gotten a great deal more outspoken, and then between the ages of 18 and 24 in particular, I had I didn't have quite as much issue telling people that their logic was incorrect or their train of thought was missing a few steps. But as a male, when you're young, you've got hormones going through you. You might tend to be a little bit more aggressive, but you chill out as you get older. So I got the Meta 3 VR headset. Do you have a VR? I do, actually. It's here somewhere. Hopefully you can't hear the sounds of beer cans falling over. I have this Oculus something or other, Oculus Rift. It's old, but I got it uh, some years back. Which, I've been wanting to use it for exercise purposes because obviously, if I have to do exercise, I would like it to be somewhat entertaining. But as I mentioned, my room's not at the moment big enough. I'd have to take the bed out completely. How do you test introverted feeling? Well, when I ask, you usually you can hear introverted feeling throughout a test. Generally speaking, you'll end up asking questions about the why for this or the why for that, and oftentimes an answer will be, well, I felt like it, or that felt right to me, or I didn't want to do that because it was wrong morally, things like that. You pick that up throughout a typing session if it's in a strong enough preference. And so, and in particular, it's obviously something you're going to hear in INFPs and ISFPs. If you're in a state where there are a lot of outdoor activities and a lot of people engage in them, a lot of SI types would be found doing those things, outdoor activities, right? Yes. What would ESTPs and ISTPs do? Well, they could just as easily do the same stuff, especially if everyone else is doing it. In the case of ESTPs, they're more people oriented, understandably. And so if they have a lot of people wanting to do those things, then they're going to be more inclined to do that for sure. But it doesn't mean that they're going to want to do it all the time. But and then of course in the case of ISTPs are more light would be just as likely to do those things. However, they would probably want to do things on their own to differentiate themselves from the other people that are doing the same stuff over and over again. And that's, of course, because of the introverted intuition preference. How would you tell if a value, or let me, I hate this chat box. How would you tell if a value or belief is based on FE or FI or thought out with TI? Well, introverted thinking typically has some specific values. One specific value that is obviously very common in introverted thinkers is that they want people to think before they do things because on a personal level, it bothers them that other people are not taking the time out to accurately come to a conclusion. But FI values, generally speaking, an FI value is something that no longer, it doesn't require a rationalization to believe. So let's say your value is don't hurt kids because let's say that the idea of kids being hurt for whatever reason, child abuse or exploitation, it upsets you. It's coming from the thought alone is coming from a place that involves emotion. So if you have a value, Or if you believe you've got this kind of a value that might be more introverted feeling related, what you would do is follow it down to you just keep asking why. Okay, I don't like this. Well, why? Can you rationalize it? Can Are you coming up with logical reasons for believing it? And then if you get all the way down to the root of it and you decide, well, I just have rationalizations for why I don't like that. It's not necessarily something that upsets me in any personal way. Then you have reached that point. What would ENTPs do if they are also people oriented like ESTPs are? Uh, well, if you're talking about, of course, being in that state, I would still think that early on in life, an ENTP could be persuaded to go and do these things, especially if they're, like still 15, 16 years old, they're still living in their parents' house. Then they might have to be forced to do that, which I, of course, was growing up. Having to do physical activities, going out to the flea market, going camping, or having to go on a hike or whatever. And of course, I didn't much appreciate it. How many times can I look at the same colored rocks and mountains and trees over and over again? Um, but eventually, the ENTP is going to understandably grow bored of that and then not want to do it anymore, especially after they turn 18 years old and they now have choices for what they do in terms of activities. But with anything else in life, if you were to incentivize an ENTP well enough, you could get them to do stuff. Curious cat. I think introverted thinking is often paired with extroverted feeling. Some of those values would come from extroverted feeling with introverted thinking rationalizing them. Yeah, and I guess we would also have to define what a value, is. So there are in some cases there are introverted sensors that pick up values that they grew up with, and then when you ask them, well, why do you subscribe to this particular value? And they'll say, well, that's just how it is. That's just how it's supposed to be. There's your clue. There's your answer for where that value came from, and it's not introverted feeling related. It's just, well, this is how I grew up, and this is what I was told was right and wrong. Therefore, it is. Now, would an ISFP look at nature in comparison to to INFP? You said INFPs thought of themselves being one with nature or something along those lines. Yes, they tend to fantasize about abstract related imaginings in regards to the forests that they're going through, or they'll sit on a rock and just try to meditate, and they'll imagine, the creatures coming around them, and that they're exuding this level of serenity that just keeps all the animals at peace with one another. They so when it comes to them going out, and mind you, once again, I have not met an INFP that just goes out into the wilderness every day for fun. That's not something that they do. But when they do it, they're doing their own imaginings, thinking about different worlds, or imagining what it would be like to communicate with the forests or the trees, or in general the rocks, the streams, things like that. That's just something that I've found that they tend to do when being out in nature. And many of them, especially INFPs, there's a lot of them that just aren't into video games these days. And so if you look on the news and it's too depressing, or you try to find things that interest in you, or would cause an interest in you, and you find nothing, especially if you're getting older, you may decide that just going outside and imagining your own world is a much better use of your time. Now, right now, as for ISFPs going out into nature, they usually do it to accomplish some kind of a goal. It's okay, I'm going to go into the forest and I'm going to try and hike my way up this thing and make it to this point. See what I can see, enjoy the nature, and then come back down. They generally have a goal in mind when they are, going out and being outdoorsy. That makes sense. Yeah, it's when we're talking about our colloquial understanding of what values are, we're talking about things like don't steal from me, like Ten Commandments stuff, right? Thou shalt not murder, steal, do bad stuff, those kinds of values, which have you could rationalize, well, the reason that, let's say you don't steal from someone is because they might get angry and then they might come and hurt you. But generally speaking, if you can steal from someone, get it, and nothing bad happens to you, is is that a value that you're going to really care all that much about? It's it's uh, it's a little bit different. We just have to define what we're talking about when we mean values. So a value that I have would be that everyone takes 5 minutes of thinking. Think through something before making a decision. Think about all the ways in which this could work and the ways that it can't work. And then just think about it for 5 minutes. That would cause me a great deal of psychological relief if people would just think. Yes, thank you, Club ENTP. Remember to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. There are more episodes of Into the Nexus on the way. You don't want to miss them. Zane's not into video games. Well, you feel like you're being unproductive, even though I'm unproductive all day mostly. Well, Zane, as far as I remember, you're still you're at home still, and not by choice. But I imagine that after you turn 18, you'll do some things. Let's see. Let's see. Nice. Very nice. What's nice? Club ENTP, you've got me curious. You said that you married two ENFJ women. Now, if you can, without giving out too much information, what was the problem that you had in that marriage or marriages? Let's see. Harley would like to join in the last bits of this stream, so let's do that. Yes, not at the same time. Hello, me. Unmute the desktop audio. All right. Anyways, we have Harley with us for the last bits of this stream.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's all right. I didn't. I wasn't. I wasn't planning on doing a stream today, but someone in the Discord said that I should, and I was like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, we should probably get back to doing them on Saturdays, huh?
Yeah. Easy question. They wanted to take up all of your time. That's interesting. I would have assumed that. Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by take up all your time. Like they wanted you to accompany them to their plans and goals and like do their functions, etc. Someone was Zane. Fair enough. So I don't know. It just I can understand where an ENFJ would want to absolutely include you in all of their plans and to strip you of whatever free time that you had. So, but I'm thinking that it might not have been that bad. I mean, yeah, sure. Do you always want to be around the normal folk all the time? Probably not. But maybe she would try to force you to come to these social gatherings where there'd be free food and alcohol. Argue with them about their feelings. And the other was all about controlling all the money. Huh. That is interesting. Are you on a third wife now, or? Hmm. Hmm. Well, I would think that yeah, drinking and or smoking weed would slow down their progress potentially for whatever their plans were. Let's see. All right, Harley, do you have any questions?
No, not really.
Okay,
Didn't exactly come in here with a transcript this time. I know it fucks me too.
fair enough. All right. Well, it does appear to be winding down. I hope everyone had fun for the period of time that I was live. Oh, and the internet is going bad. Well, you might have to do LSD. Remember to like and subscribe, and that more episodes of Into the Nexus are coming out. I'm still working with the new technology that I got. I'm not familiar with having a fancy phone. And these phones are, of course, amazing when trying to record things. So I'll be working on that, still doing some experiments, finding out the best ways to do the recordings, etc. But we will be picking that back up very shortly. You look just like my third ex-wife. You've been married 3 times. Oh, I see the joke there. Because you're going to make her the third ex-wife. Got it. All right. Well, that'll be it for today. As I said earlier, make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions regarding MBTI in particular, just feel free to at me on the Discord, and I will get down to it. I use Androids. Typically, this is some Galaxy model. I think it was like a Galaxy 23 or something. I don't know. It's actually not. It's not brand new or anything. This is. I think it was like 2 years old or something. But anyways, yes, and remember, Club ENTP. Feel free to send me messages on Discord if you use that. So, anyways, thank you for all the questions today, and I will see you next week, I imagine. Say bye, Harley.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.